Now, these abilities to work with these cycles and to prophesy and so forth, that can be applied to Earth. And if it's applied to Earth rather than for the benefit of humanity, but for self purposes or whatever, and if that's done, the person who does this, their perception drops down into the Earth, and they'll basically get answered with Earth rather than with the S, and the angels of Jehovah, because the angels of Jehovah are working toward Jehovah's kingdom, and they will work through corporea, but they're working for the advantage of everyone. And so in applying prophecy, so we have to bear in mind as well that while these cycles can be applied to lower means, it's better to use them for the betterment of humanity. The question someone might ask arise, well, why even impart this information if you know certain things are going to happen? Isn't that bad? Isn't that going to hurt? Well, actually, if you know something, certain things that are going to occur, you can be prepared for them. And does that negate what's going to happen? Well, it just depends. You see, if you're down in corporea and you give real specific things like, oh, A, B, C is going to happen because of the precursors X, Y, Z. Well, and then if it doesn't quite turn out that way, well, then this, because they tried to become too specific with it. And you have to be really good at this in order to get that specific in any event. But in the larger sense, to prepare for something that's coming. Now, this is one of the reasons why Oahspe gave the prophecy, these elements of prophecy, and why they're important, why you need them. And because of these Ajai and Jaya, that these times, now when the Jaya comes, which is the semi-light, and if it's rising and falling, well, one of the things that occurs amongst mortals during that time is fevers, because of the atmosphere that is conducive for the perpetuation and propagation of bacteria and viruses and so forth. It's sort of like their milieu. And man, if he's been unclean, when he goes forward to do something and encounters the Jaya, depending upon how clean or unclean he is and what he does, it may magnify this tendency to be aware of the distance between health and dissolution, basically, is what it is. And so we learn in Oahspe that there are cycles of events. These times of falling Ajai and Jaya, some of them are cyclical, and we can know about those. And when they are, it says in Oahspe that we can be prepared for these, and we can know what to do with regard to them, or we can learn what to do with regard to them. Now, Oahspe does not tell everyone, or anyone for that matter, exactly what to do in this situation, because they leave that for us to find out, to figure out, to determine. Because first of all, the angels don't want us dependent on them. They want us to be able to stand on our own. And it's not that they're going to ignore us either, but the idea is that we need to learn how to go forth and deal with that, with our environment, with the elements of our surroundings. Essentially, the reason why prophecy was given to mortals in that regard, for health purposes and to assist man to prepare. Now, they talk about during the Danhai cycle, the periods that man goes through as regularly as the tide, they say. And so by knowing these, we can prepare ahead. Now it's really not much different than having a granary. You know, if you know a famine is coming, you have a granary filled with food so to tide you over. So yes, it is good to be able to know these things and to apply them. And it's whether or not it should be given out or not. Well, it's the old thought of, well, if you invent something, it can always be used for evil. It can be used for either good or evil. And so do you hold it back? And so for example, way back when, a knife. Now a knife, you can cut fruit and vegetables and you can eat. You know, it helps you to eat using that utensil. And but of course we also know that it can be used for evil. And so the question is, you know, do you invent a knife because it can be used for evil, or do you invent a knife for the good that comes about it? And of course that's a decision that each person has to undertake, whoever is, you know, coming forth with that invention or innovation, whatever it may be. But with regard to prophecy then, when we, in understanding these cycles, we can understand that they can be applied to evil purposes as well as to good ends. We know from how Jehovah has his heaven structured that even those who do evil ultimately will turn good and make amends for it and so forth, and be able to rise up in resurrection and in ascension. And meanwhile, they had developed some of their talents while they were doing their evil. Nevertheless, in the study and in the use of cycles, then we can find ways to help humanity. And so, and we'll look at those later on in this series of talks. So now when we get back here to the first four cycles, and then we go on to the fifth cycle, and what exactly does the fifth cycle mean, and the fifth reality from Samoin, which is the EAO? Well, we talked somewhat about what it means, but it also means many other things besides that, the things that we talked about. But one of the things that it does that's of importance that we just barely touched on, which is that it's the start, the restart of the 1, 2, 3, 4. And remember, the 1, 2, 3, 4, the foundation, the O, which is the perception of the foundation, the objectivity of it, and so forth, and then the Esk, which is the third combination, and then the Esak, which was the cosmos. And the cosmos being the whole. And so, and this had to do with the outer foundation. But now we're working 5, 6, 7, 8. The next 4, the next set of 4. And so 5 becomes the foundation, and it's the inner foundation that we're working on for the next set of 4. Although it can also be applied to the outer foundation, because the outer foundation doesn't go away even though you're dealing with the inner foundation. The foundation cycle of all, which is the Ah, that's always there. It's always there, but it's just whether you focus on it or not, whether you're laboring with that, working in that field, so to speak. But it's always there, but it may be in the background rather than in the forefront, as it is when you're working in the first cycle. That's in the forefront, the foundation.